Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today for these shorts, I'm going to be using 3 hooks. The first hook is an E hook. The second one is an F hook. You can see that. F. And my last hook that I'm going to use, and the main hook I'm using, is G. It's on here somewhere, but it's a G hook. And then I'll also be using, I love this yarn. It's a medium weight 4, and I'm going to be using the color, this is the color Rosy Cheeks. It's like a dusty pink. And then you'll also need a pair of scissors, of course, and a measuring tape. And then you're going to need 2 measurements. The first one is your hip size, so that is the fullest part of your hip. And then you'll also need your crotch depth. So like go all the way around from where you want your shorts to sit and measure how long this entire length is. So I'm going to start off with my E hook, the smaller hook, for the ribbing of the shorts. So we're going to start off by making a slip knot. And then I'm going to make a chain of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I'm going to chain one more for a turning chain and go back along this row with 7 single crochets. So insert your hook, pull up a loop. So make sure you do skip that turning chain too. Yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. Insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both. So it's just basic single crochets across. And 7. From there, I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. And then we're going to do a ribbing stitch. So instead of going through both loops like normal, we're just going to go through the back loop only with single crochets. So we're going to do 7 back loop only single crochets across this row. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then from there we're going to continue this stitch, chain 1 and turn your work, and then we're going to continue doing back loop only single crochets. So go ahead and make 7 more back loop only single crochets until the end of the row. Chain 1 and then turn your work, and we're just going to continue our ribbing stitch, and we're going to continue this pattern until the ribbing is long enough to stretch to your hip measurement. So just continue making rows of 7 back loop only single crochets until this stretches out to your hip measurement. So go ahead and continue, and I will meet you back here and show you what to do next. Okay, so once you get your waistband long enough for you, just make sure that when you stretch it out that it reaches your hip measurement so that you can actually get the piece on over your hips. So another thing is you might want to try to make sure that when you fold this in half that your working yarn is on the same side as your tail, so you can kind of cover it up in the seam as you go. And I'm gonna flip this the other way actually. I'm gonna flip this so that my working yarn is on the second strap towards me and this one is closer to me, and also on the side so that in the direction I want to crochet in. So what I'm going to do first is insert my hook into the very first chain space that we made where the tail is, and then I'm just going to grab my loop from the working end and pull it through the first side. I'm going to lay my tail on top, and I'm going to chain one in this first chain like that. And you can do this seam with slip stitches or single crochets, it really doesn't matter, but I'm just going to do single crochets. So insert your hook into the next chain space of the side closest to you, and then insert your hook into the second chain space of the other side. Go ahead and pull up a loop. You can slip stitch here or you can single crochet. Either one is fine. Insert your hook into the next chain space and the next of the other side. Pull up a loop and single crochet or slip stitch. Insert into the next space and the next space in the second side. Pull up a loop and single crochet. So that's all we're doing to close this seam. Just try to make sure you don't skip any chain spaces on either side. Which it looks like I might have. Oh no, I didn't. I got it right. And last one. And single crochet. Alright, so we're going to make sure that this seam is on the inside, so I'm just going to flip it the other way. And from here, I'm going to pull my tail out a little bit. So this was all using the E-hook. So now I'm going to switch to my F-hook, which is a bigger hook. And from here what I'm going to do is just chain one. And then I'm going to go around my waistband with single crochets. I'm sure like you guys have seen me do this 80 times in my other videos if you've watched them. So yeah, just go in the first chain space, pull up a loop and single crochet, insert into the next. Well, actually we're on the side of rows, so what I'm trying to do is put one single crochet for every row, and you can tell like in between the ridges is 2 rows there. So I'm just trying to put 1 single crochet on the side of every row for this step. And like I always like to say, I like to try to go in the same spot so that it's uniform. So whatever spot I'm going into in the first stitch between the ridges and in the second stitch between the ridges, I try to repeat that so that it kind of looks pretty neat. So all we're doing for this row is just single crochets all the way around. So go ahead and finish going around your waistband, and I'll meet you back at the beginning of this row and I'll show you what to do after that. Okay, so it looks like I have just like maybe 1 or 2, just 1 single crochet left, and then when you get to the beginning, just go ahead and slip stitch into that very first single crochet. Now what we're going to do is switch hooks to our G hook, and the only reason why I do that is because these rows down here were made with an E hook and they're pretty small. They might be a little too small for this G hook, so I just did 1 row of single crochets with the in-between size to kind of make it a little more manageable. This row is similar, so I'm gonna put a chart up, and this is the amount of stitches that you need for each size, kind of like a recommended amount of stitches. I'm making a medium, so what we need to do before we start crocheting is count how many single crochets that we did in this last row, and mine is 130, and I'm doing a size medium. So as you can see on the chart, I need to get to 154 stitches for my size. So so I have 130 here, and everyone's gonna have a different amount of stitches here because the waistbands will all be different. So I have 130 here, and I need to get to 154. And I'm gonna do it in this first row here. So what I'm gonna do is subtract the 154, subtract 130 from 154, and I have 24 stitches. And then I'm gonna try to divide the 24 stitches. So I'm gonna divide them evenly around the waistband. So if I divide 130 by 24, I get 5 and some change. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna increase every 5th stitch until I reach my 154, until I'm gonna reach my 154. So what I'm gonna do is, for this first thing we're gonna do is chain 1, and then I'm going to put, for me, I'm gonna put 5 single crochets. So you might have a different amount of single crochets you might need to do before you get to your first increase. So for me, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then on my 5th one, after my 5th one, I'm going to put 2 single crochets into the next stitch. 1 and 2. And then I'm going to single crochet 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to put 2 stitches in the next stitch. So once you divide your number up, whatever that number is. It might be 4 and some change. So if it's 4, just count 4 and then put your increase in the next stitch. But you're gonna have to try to keep up with how many that you have total, because you want to just hit this recommended number that I gave you earlier for your size. So just try to spread your increases out throughout the waistband. That's how I'm kind of spreading out my increases. Just spread them out and then make sure you are hitting that number that you have for your size. So I will meet you back at the beginning of this row and I'll show you what to do after that. Okay, so I reached my 154. I had to squeeze some extra ones kind of towards the end there, but that's okay. Don't worry about them being exactly spaced out. You just really want to hit this number. I kind of squeezed a whole bunch of single crochets at the end, but I do have 154, and now I'm going to slip stitch into the very first single crochet of this row, not in the chain one. So go ahead and slip stitch. Okay, so from here what we're gonna do is we're gonna start counting off some chains and marking them off. They will make sense in a little bit, so just bear with me. So from your working yarn, we're going to count that first stitch with it, and we're going to count 5 stitches over for size small through medium. And if you're a large to 1X, you're going to count 7 stitches over. And if you're a size 2X or 3X, you're going to count 10 stitches over. So from here, count this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and mark off that 5th chain or your 7th chain or your 10th chain, depending on your size. Now you do know how many stitches you have in this row. I have 154 for my size. So from here, I need to count halfway of my total amount of stitches. So half of 154 for me is 77. So I went on ahead and I counted out 77 stitches. That's the halfway point. And I marked that off. And then I went on ahead and added 5 more stitches, counted out 5 more stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and marked that off. So if you're a size large or extra large, you would count 7 here. And if you're 2X or 3X, you would count out 10 more stitches here. So it's basically, let's see if I can zoom out some. Basically, like, what it's doing is, from the beginning, yeah, so the back part of the shorts, this is kind of like folded directly in half. The back part of the shorts are going to start here, as you can kind of see in the picture. And same on this side. So I marked it off. I have it so that the 2 halfway points are there and I know where they are. But this is where the back portion is starting. It kind of comes along the front there. So that's why we kind of had to do that. So from here, what we're going to do is start on our stitches. Okay, so after you have all your stitches counted out where you need them, we're going to go ahead and start the next row. So chain 1, and we're still going in the same direction that way. So what I'm going to do is put 5 double crochets, but these first 5 double crochets will be front loop only double crochets, because this is where the 2 panels kind of overlap a little bit. So yarn over and pick up that front loop only of the first stitch and pull up a loop and then double crochet. Okay, again, yarn over, pick up the front loop only and pull up a loop and double crochet. And if you have the 7 stitches or the 10 stitches, you're going to do 7 or 10 front loop only double crochets here as well. So go ahead and finish that. And take my stitch marker out and do my last front loop only double crochet like that. And I'm actually going to put my stitch marker back just so I know where this is and I don't get confused. Alright, so once you did your 5, 7, or 10 front loop only double crochets, we're going to switch to regular double crochets in the middle. So just go ahead and do regular double crochets now until we get to the next stitch marker. So continue your regular double crochets until we reach the next stitch marker, and I'll show you what's after that. Okay, so I reached my next stitch marker, so I'm going to take that one out, and I'm going to do 5 front loop only double crochets. So if you are in the other sizes, you will do 7 or 10 like you did at the beginning of this row. So go ahead and do your front loop only double crochets, and actually I'm going to put my stitch marker back on the first one so that I know where it is. So that was 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I won't put that one back because that's the end of this row. Alright. And it's just, from the outside, it just looks like a regular row of double crochets. And that's what we wanted. So now we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And now the steps are a lot simpler. So what we're going to do is yarn over, insert our hook into the first stitch, and do 1 double crochet here, 1 double crochet, and then we're going to chain 1 and skip this very first stitch, and then we're going to put a double crochet in the next stitch. And that's the only skipping that we're going to do. The entire middle of this row is all just regular double crochets until you have 2 stitches left. So I will meet you at the end of this row when you have your 2 stitches left, and I'll show you what's next. Alright, so I have 3 stitches left. I'm going to do 1 more double crochet. And then now that I have 2, I'm going to chain 1 and skip this first chain and go ahead and double crochet into the last stitch. And then from there I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. From here, what we're going to do is, in our very first stitch, our double crochet in the row below, we're going to put 1 double crochet. And in this gap here, now you can see that we did skip this stitch down here, so what I'm going to do is work a puff stitch, but a long puff stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, And I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch from the row below that we skipped. So put your hook into that stitch and then pull up a loop, and when you pull this loop up, you're going to pull it up to the height of the double crochet in your current row. Okay, and then we're going to yarn over and insert our hook back into that same stitch and pull up a loop and pull it up to the height of the double crochet in the row that you're in. And we'll do it one more time and pull it up high. So now you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops on your hook, and from there we're going to yarn over and pull through all 7. Okay, so that's our puff stitch. I'm actually just going to work that one more time to show you. So we already did our first, it's kind of pulled now. We already worked our first double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that skipped stitch from the row below, insert my hook into that stitch, pull up a loop, and pull that loop up as high as this double crochet. Yarn over, insert my hook again into the same stitch and pull up another loop, and we'll do it one more time. So we're doing that 3 times. And then you'll have 7 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 7. From there, what we're going to do next is continue our regular double crochets. So we're just going to do all double crochets in the middle. So continue doing your double crochets, and I will meet you when we get to the next gap here. So continue your double crochets in the middle, and I'll meet you there and show you what to do after that. Alright, so I have one more double crochet left here before my gap. And into the gap we're going to do what we did on the other side. So I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into the stitch that's below the gap. So insert your hook and pull up a loop and pull it as high as the double crochet you just did. And then yarn over, insert your hook again into the same stitch, pull up a loop and pull it up high. And one more time, yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch, pull up a loop, and now you should have 7 loops on your hook. So go ahead and yarn over and pull through all 7. And sometimes I just have to wiggle my hook to get it through all 7. And from there, we just have 1 double crochet left. So let me find that. So go ahead and double crochet into the last stitch. There we go. And that's your puff stitch for the other side. So go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. And from here, what we're going to do is go ahead and put 1 double crochet into the very first stitch. And then we'll chain 1 and skip the second stitch and double crochet into the third stitch. And then in the middle, we're going to do regular double crochets until we have 2 stitches left. So I will meet you back when we have 2 stitches left and show you what's next. Okay, so I have 3 stitches left, so I'll do my next double crochet. And now I have 2 stitches left in the row, so I'm going to chain 1 and skip this second to last stitch and do a double crochet in the very last stitch. I caught my puff stitch. Okay, So from here, now we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And in this row, it's similar to 2 rows ago. We're going to put a double crochet in the first stitch, and then we're going to work our next puff stitch. So we're going to yarn over and insert our hook into the stitch that we skipped from the previous row. Insert your hook into that stitch and pull up a loop and pull it up high like as the other double crochet. And then we're going to do that 2 more times. 1 and 2. And now we have 7 loops on our hook, and we're going to yarn over and pull through all 7. And then in the middle, we're going to do our regular double crochets until we reach the next puff stitch. So I will meet you there and show you what to do after that. Okay, so I've made my way around and I have 1 more regular double crochet. And then when we get to the gap, we're gonna do our long puff stitch again. So yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch below the space, and then pull up a loop and pull it high, and then yarn over, insert again, and 1 more time. And then from there, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops on your hook. And finally, we'll do a double crochet in the last stitch. So I'm putting a chart up now. This pattern is going to continue. So on your return row on the inside, you're going to make those little gaps. And on the front side, we're going to do this long puff stitch. So follow along with this chart for your size, and I will meet you back once you complete the amount of rows that you needed for your size. And once you have that, what we're gonna do is chain 1 and tie off, but I'm gonna leave my tail a little bit longer, not too long, because we're gonna use that tail later, possibly. So next what we want to do, so this is the front side of the shorts. I'm going to turn it so that I'm back to my ribbing. And inside here is where our front panel is going to start. So what we want to do is make sure that our first row is facing outward. So we want to start from here and go this way. So you want to make sure that your front panel, or if you're left-handed, you'll start on the other side. But your first row needs to face forward. So what we're going to do is remove that stitch marker, and we're going to tie a new a double knot here in that 5th stitch there. Just tie a regular double knot. And from here, remember we did those front loop only stitches, so we're going to do these 5 back loop only stitches. So go ahead and chain 1 here, and then actually just go ahead and chain 2, 1, 2, so that you can leave this as a double crochet. It's okay because it won't be seen. I normally don't do double crochets like that, but so we'll just chain 2 and count that one as a double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet all the way across this row, this first row. So that's all we're doing for this first row. until we get to the other stitch marker. So I will meet you back once we finish this first row of the front panel, and I'll tell you what's after that. Okay, so I've made it to the other side almost, and so just like we did the first side, we're going to open this up so that we can get to these back loop stitches here, and we're gonna do 5 back loop only double crochets back here. So let's do that. Looks like the first one's a little bit covered, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's the end of this row. So now what we're going to do is chain 1 and turn our work. And now, now the pattern repeats just like the first side panel. So we're going to start off this row with 1 double crochet in the first stitch. Oops. Yarn over first. 1 double crochet in the first stitch, and then chain 1 and skip 1 stitch and double crochet in the next stitch. So pretty much this front panel is exactly the same as the back panel. So we're going to do these,
but you will need 2 less rows of double crochet for the front side.
In the next row we're going to do our puff stitches in every other row until you reach the same amount of rows that you did for your size. So go ahead and finish this front panel, and then I will meet you after that and show you what's next. So the next step, once you finish your front and back, the back is either 10 stitches wider than the front, or it's 14 stitches wider, or it's 20 stitches wider than the front. So after you do your 2 sides, now we're going to need to mark off your middle chains. And it really depends on how many stitches you have here. You might not have a middle chain, and if you don't have a middle chain, then you're gonna mark off your 2 middle chains. But before you tie this one off, I'll show you. This one, when cut in half, had a middle chain. This one, when cut in half, didn't have a middle chain. So what I did was I just went back in here. Let me flip it so you can see. There it is. I went back in here and put 1 extra stitch so that my front side could have a middle chain too. So you just want them to either both have a middle chain, or they both have 2 middle chains. So go ahead and figure that out, and make sure that if you need to, just do an increase right before you tie off so that they can both have a middle chain, or 2. I hope that makes sense, but let's continue once you figure that out. If you have the 2 middle chains, go ahead and make sure you mark both of those off. And we're going to start crocheting kind of like the crotch area. So what I'm going to do is tie a double knot. So I do have middle chains here. If you have the two, you're just going to pick the rightmost one if you're right-handed, or the other one if you're left-handed. But pick the one chain on the right-hand side and tie your double knot. Alright, and once you tie your double knot, we're going to pull up a loop, and then we're going to chain 2, and that's going to count as a double crochet. And then if you have if you have two middle chains, you're just going to do a double crochet in the next stitch. If you have 3 middle chains, you're going to do 2 more double crochets. So 1 in the beginning, 1 in the middle, and 1 in the end. So you have 3 double crochets, or you'll have 2 double crochets. From there, we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work. And from there, go ahead and just continue doing double crochets. So we're just doing 3 or 2 double crochets. Two and 3. Like that, and then chain 1 and turn your work. Oops, hit the camera. And turn your work. And I got stuff flying all over the place. And we're going to continue making this strip of 2 or 3 double crochets, rows of 2 or 3 double crochets. Chain 1 and turn your work. And so I will put a chart up of some suggested sizes. Whoops. And we're going to continue making this like little crotch strip here. But remember when we did our crotch length. So I'm going to put up some suggested lengths for you. But if you did your crotch length, mine was 20 inches that I wanted mine to be fully. So what I did was I took my front, which is a little bit shorter, and I measured that. I measured from the first row of double crochets, I measured that, and it was 6.5, and then that's the back side, and then I measured the front, and it was 5.5, and so that gives me 12 inches. So if I want mine to be 20 inches around, then I'm gonna have to do this strip until I get it to 8 inches long. So because I have 12 already between the two sides, and then I need to make this one 8 inches long to kind of, make up for that, I guess. And I'll put up a chart right now to kind of give you an idea if you're trying to just make random sizes and it's not for you and you can't measure this person. So I'll put that up now. So go ahead and continue making your strip as long as you need it to be, and then I'll meet you at the end and show you what to do after that. So once you have your little strip made, as long as you need it to be, we're going to fold it backwards so that it's in line with the back and not twisted. You just don't want it twisted. And Let me find my loop here. So I have my other middle chain marked off. If you have 2 chains, it's the same steps. It's just 2 instead of 3. So I'm going to match them up and crochet them from the inside together. So I'm going to put them together, kind of matched up, and then I'm going to, let's go on this side. Then I'm going to reinsert, I'm actually going to chain 1 first, and reinsert my hook back into that first stitch, and insert my hook into the first stitch that I'm going to use here, and then pull up a loop and slip stitch. Then remove my stitch marker for my middle one. And if you have 2, it's the same. Insert your hook, insert into the corresponding chain on your back, and then pull up a loop and slip stitch. And I have 1 more. And slip stitch, and then chain 1 and tie off. Alright, so now that we have our little strip here done, we're going to pick one of the tails that we left, and the tail should be on different sides, but I'm gonna just start with one of them, and I'm gonna tie a knot to the end of this tail. So what you want to do is lay your tail kind of flat across like this, and just take your working yarn, your new yarn, and tie a single knot around the tail. So just tie a regular single knot here like that, and pull it a little bit tight. And then you're going to take this string with the original tail and tie a single knot around the working yarn, your new yarn. So take that rest of the tail and tie a single knot around that one. I mean, you could just weave this tail in and tie a knot to that corner, and that'll work too. But that way now you have 2 loops, or 1 loop in the middle, you have 2 knots, and you're just going to pull, and the knot will close, and then you can cut the little tails off, and that knot will not come out like that. By the way, this knot works better than the knots. Sometimes you find a little knot in your yarn. That type of knot works better than the manufacturer knot. Anyway, what we're going to do is continue our the pattern that we've been doing. So let's insert our hook into the first stitch there and pull up a loop. And then we're going to chain 1, and that doesn't count for anything. And then we're going to yarn over and do a double crochet in that first stitch. And then we're going to chain 1, because our last one was this, what is it called? was this puff stitch. And we want the puff stitch to continue. So chain 1 and skip a stitch and do a double crochet in the next stitch. So go on ahead and double crochet until we reach that middle strip, and I'll show you what to do when we get there. Alright, so once you're almost at your little strip area, go ahead and do your final ones. final double crochets. Okay, so once you get to your middle knot area, we're going to put one double crochet into that corner knot there. But then we're going to turn our work kind of sideways and just start doing double crochets on the side of these rows here. So these are double crochets, and I'm going to put double crochets, 2 double crochets on the side of each row, but I'm going to split these stitches open. I'm not going to go in between the stitch because that'll create too much of a hole. So I'm going to split the stitch open and do my double crochet in there like that. So it's just a continuous, like we're just going to keep going around and just put 2 double crochets into the side of every row of this strip. Just like that. So it's just continuing to go around. And I'm gonna pull this to the back. Ooh, I should have weaved that in. Let me weave it in first, actually. So yeah, let me weave that in. To save me some work for later. There we go. Much better. So yeah, go ahead and continue doing double crochets down the side of these rows. Do 2 in the side of every row, and then I will meet you when we reach the other leg and show you what's after that. So now I'm approaching the next side. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up my last few double crochets from over here. Yeah, that's 2. Okay, so when you get to the next corner, that stitch that has the slip stitch in it, we're going to go ahead and double crochet into that corner like that. And maybe that's leaving a gap, so I might put, if you get a little gap there, just shove one more double crochet somewhere. I'm going to shove one more because it was really giving me a pretty bad hold there. Okay, I'll go ahead and do my little corner stitch. And now we're pretty much on the back side. So let me get this so you can see it a little bit better. So we did this front side and we curved around, and now we're on the back side. So we're on the other leg hole, well, the back side of this same leg hole. So we're just going to finish our row with double crochets until we reach the end of this leg opening here. And I'll meet you at the end of this leg opening, and I'll show you what's after that. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the leg hole, so we're going to continue doing our double crochets like we've been doing. And when we have 2 stitches left, we're going to chain 1 and skip that second to last stitch and double crochet into the last stitch, and then we'll chain 1 and turn our work. So now our leg hole is pretty much a continuous pattern at this point, so it's pretty much continuous, so it'll be easy from here on out to keep going. So once you turn your work, we're going to continue our main pattern, which was 1 row on the inside. 1 row was this little hole here, and then the next row on the outside was the double crochet and then the puff stitch. And then double crochets all the way around until we get to the other side. So I will meet you on the other side and I'll show you what's after that. So when you get to your second side, you're going to go ahead and complete the row like we've been doing by doing a puff stitch in the second to last stitch. Like that, and then a double crochet at the end of the row. So from there you're just going to chain 1 and turn your work, and I'm going to do a few more rows of this same pattern going around this 1 leg hole. So I'm going to start off with my double crochet, chain 1 and skip a chain and double crochet into the next. I'm just going to continue this pattern for 2 or 3 more rows and kind of try them on and see how I like them so far. I'll let you know in the next clip how many rows I do before I start tapering off my shorts. So you can skip ahead to the next clip and kind of see what I did to see how long you might want them. All right, so I'll meet you there and I'll show you. So I finished 6 rows, and now it's long enough to it's right below my cheek right now, and that's how long it is. And if you want it a little bit longer, you can do that too. But those were just kind of like the suggested amount of rows for every size. So you can do what you're comfortable with, and once you're done with that, we're going to taper off the short, so we are going to add more rows still. It's not going to stay that short. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 1. My work's already turned. But from here, what we're going to do is make this edge more rounded. So what I'm going to do is in the first stitch, go ahead and put a double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 1 like normal. And instead of skipping 1 chain, I'm going to skip 2 chains. So skip 2 and go into the 3rd chain. And that's how we're going to get this edge a little more rounded. And then from there, I'm going to just double crochet all the way around for the rest of this row until I have 3 stitches left at the end, and I'll meet you there and show you what's after that. Okay, so I have 3 stitches left in the row, so I'm going to chain 1 and skip 2 stitches and go ahead and double crochet into that very last stitch like that, and then chain 1 and turn your work. So now we're going to do a puff stitch, but we're going to do it a little bit different because we have 2 stitches here. So what I'm going to do is yarn over, oh, I'm sorry, the first one I'm going to do a double crochet first. And then I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into the first stitch and pull up a loop, raise it high, and then yarn over, and then I'm going to go into this second stitch and do my last 2 loops in the second stitch. So I'll do that one more time. Instead of working in 1 stitch only, I'm going to work in both. So the first loop only, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the first stitch and pull up my first loop, and then my last 2 loops I'm putting in the last stitch like that. And that's the only difference there. And then so I'm going to continue doing double crochets until I reach the other side, and I'll show you how I'm going to do my puff stitch when we reach the other side. Alright, so I have 1 double crochet left before my puff stitch. So in this puff stitch we're going to do a similar thing by using both stitches, but this time I'm going to put 2 in the first stitch and 1 in the last stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and go into that first stitch, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and go into the same stitch and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and go into that second to last stitch and pull up a loop. So it's kind of the same, but it's just the reverse so that they can mirror each other. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my last double crochet here. And now you can see the stitches kind of going in a little bit because we decreased by 1. So at this point what I'm going to do is chain 1 and turn my work, and I'm going to continue this pattern, and I will put up how many rows that I did because I am making this up as I go, so I'm kind of filming it while I'm making it, so I don't know how many yet, but I'm going to go ahead and do my first double crochet and chain 1 and skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and double crochet into the third stitch. So I'm going to continue this like decreasing pattern for a couple of rows, and I will show you how many that I did, and you can do as many as you want, you know, however long you want your shorts to be. And then after that there's still going to be 2 more rows that we're going to have to do, so don't make them completely as long as you want because we're going to add like a border row at the bottom. So continue this pattern, and I'll let you know how many I did, and I'll meet you there and show you what's after that. Okay, so I only did 2 rows of that. They're pretty much long enough for me. Or I did 4 rows total. 4 rows of the double crochets and only 2 more puff stitches. So from there I chained 1 and turned my work already. And this last row is going to be a little bit different. So to start on that, I already chained 1 and turned my work. So this first stitch is like normal, just a double crochet here, and then I'm going to chain 1 and skip the 2 stitches and double crochet in the third stitch, and then chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet in the next stitch. And we're pretty much gonna do this until we have the 3 stitches left at the end. So go ahead and continue this pattern, and I'll show you what to do after that. Okay, so I know that everyone kind of has a different amount of stitches in this row. So if you get to the point where you don't, where it doesn't match, just go ahead and skip 2 stitches earlier to kind of make sure that you still have 3 stitches left. So mine's kind of worked out, but you know, back here somewhere, if you see it's getting to be like that back here, go ahead and skip 2 stitches instead of just 1, so that way this can have the right amount for the end of the row. I hope that makes sense. But when you get to the end of the row, just try to make it so that your second to last double crochet, that there's 3 stitches here. So if you have to do something back here, go ahead and do it. But other than that, for the last one, we're gonna chain 1 and skip 2 stitches, and then double crochet into the last stitch like that. Okay, and then from there, chain 1 and turn your work. And from here, what we're gonna do is, like we've been doing, we're going to put a double crochet in the first stitch, and then we're going to put 1 loop here for this puff stitch. Oops. 1 loop here for the puff stitch, and then 2 loops in this second stitch for our puff stitch. And then we're going to double crochet on top of the next double crochet, and then we're going to put a puff stitch here. And then we're going to double crochet on top of the next double crochet, and then we're going to put a puff stitch into the stitch below the box. And then double crochet on top of the next double crochet, and then puff stitch. So this pattern is going to continue for the rest of the row. If you did skip 2 stitches back here somewhere, then just go ahead and do it like we've been doing this first puff stitch. And yeah, just go ahead and finish this row, and then I'll show you what's after that. Okay, so I have 1 more puff stitch and 1 more double crochet before that. And then 1 more puff stitch. So this is the one that gets the 2 in 1 stitch and 1 in the other stitch. And then finally my last double crochet. So from here, what I'm gonna do is chain 1, and I'm actually gonna turn these kind of on the side or you can go this way, it doesn't matter, we'll get to that spot. But I'm gonna chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to single crochet kind of in that second row. So I'm gonna do like every other row. So I'm gonna single crochet into that second row. So we're just putting a little small lace border here, nothing too hard. So yeah, I'm gonna chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm gonna just try to space them out evenly. So just try your best to space them out. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then just pick a space, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Oops. So basically we're going to go all the way up this leg, this little slit here, with chain 3s and single crochets spaced out. So go ahead and finish going up the leg, and then depending on which side you're on, I'm on the inside, so go ahead and finish this little pattern until you get to the base of the shorts or the waistband, and I'll show you what's after that. Okay, so I went up this side slit, and I've got like one more loop here to do. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm gonna go ahead and single crochet kind of at the base here. From here I'm gonna kind of turn this on its side so it's open. Get my working yarn on top. There we go. So from here, because this is kind of like on the inside, and you can tell like that's the back leg, so I'm just opened it up, that's all. I'm going to slip stitch so that I can get to the other side. So I'm going to just pick up the one on the inside, not the one that's on the front. So this back side kind of covers those 5 stitches. So I'm going to do this on the one that's covered up. Okay. So I'm just going to pick up a stitch and yarn over and slip stitch. And that's all I'm going to do until I get to the other side. Whoops. So I'm going to pick up the next stitch, yarn over, and slip stitch. Pick up the next stitch, yarn over, and slip stitch. So there should be 5 of those that need to be done before you can get to the other side, and this is the last one. Okay, so now I made it to the back side, and I'm just going to turn my work so that the back side is now, I can work on that side. So I am like right here. So before I do that, I'm just going to pick like this corner stitch here, and I'm going to single crochet into it, kind of like close to the corner, and just single crochet there, and then we can start up with our chain 3s. So go ahead and chain 3 and just kind of space it out like we've been doing, and then I will meet you when we kind of get more to this corner, and I'll show you what to do after that. Okay, so I'm almost at the corner, and I'm gonna try to make it so that I can put a single crochet in the corner stitch. So let me single crochet and then chain 3, and then try to hit this corner stitch here like that, and then I'm gonna turn it on its side. So now we're at the bottom of the leg hole, and we're just gonna continue this pattern until we get back to the beginning where we started this type of stitch. So go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then skip 1 stitch and single crochet in the next stitch, and then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip 1 stitch and single crochet into the next stitch. So this is all we're doing until we reach the beginning of these little lacy loops. So I will meet you there, and I will show you what's after that. Okay, so I have one more little loop to make. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to do a slip stitch here. Matter of fact, I kind of want to slip stitch into this first chain 1, because I chained 4 on the first one. Just like that. And so from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch so that I'm in this next loop. And then I'm just going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And turn it on its side. Chain 3, and then I'm going to single crochet into the next loop. Then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and single crochet into the next loop. 1, 2, 3, single crochet into the next loop. And so that's all I'm doing for this row. Single crochet into the next loop. So go ahead and single crochet, and chain 3 and then single crochet into the next loop. Keep going until we get to this back to this middle section, and I'll show you what to do when we get here. Okay, so I have 1 loop left here, so I'm going to go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then single crochet in my last loop, and then I'm going to chain 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to kind of turn this so that I'm kind of getting to this very first slip stitch that we did, or just pick one of them. It really doesn't matter because it's kind of on the inside. So go ahead and slip stitch into the first slip stitch that you can find that you did, and then from there we're just going to slip stitch across these slip stitches. 2, 3, 4. And once you kind of get to the point where you're almost at your first loop of the row, or the first loop on this side, so I'm going to turn this so that So I just turned it. So when you're almost at that first loop there, go ahead and do one more slip stitch like that, and then go ahead and slip stitch into that first loop, and then from there you're going to chain 3, 2, 3, and then continue with your chain 3, and then single crochet into the next loop, chain 3, and then single crochet into the next loop, just like we've been doing. And so this is gonna continue for the rest of this row. Even when you get to the corner, just follow the pattern and just single crochet here, chain 3, and then single crochet. So it's pretty much the same for the rest of this round, and I will meet you at the end of this round and show you what's next. Okay, so I'm coming up on my last two. So I got one more. 1, 2, 3, and on your very last one, go ahead and slip stitch into the first stitch there. Slip stitch and then chain 1 and cut your work. And I'll show you what it looks like now. Okay, so that is the end of our first leg hole. So don't worry about this, by the way. This is going to fix itself once we get the second leg hole going. So don't worry about this looking like that right now. So yeah, so I mean, the next thing we're gonna do is do the second leg hole the exact same way. So what I would do is just start with this string and grab your yarn and tie that little magic knot there. So I'm gonna tie my old string. I'm gonna tie my old string to my new string. Just one single regular knot like we did before. And then I'm going to tie my new string to my old string. So there will be that little loop in the middle. And pull them together. There we go. And I'm just going to cut off the tails here. And then from there we can keep going just like we did on the other leg. So you should have, on this side, you should have ended with a puff stitch last. So I'll chain 1 first. And then we're just gonna repeat what we did on the other leg hole. So if you need to, go ahead and rewind and rewatch the video. Make sure that you are putting the exact same amount of rows that you did on the first leg hole. Make sure you do that in the second leg hole. Okay, so just continue working this leg hole just like you did that. And I do have one more tip, one more piece of advice before I let you go with this leg hole. So I did I did start off on my first row with a gap, and I'm coming around, and I just want to make sure that when you get to this middle section here where the leg hole kind of splits off like that, what you're going to want to do is try to match as best as you can where you put your double crochets on the first side, because you want to try to make sure that you have the same amount of stitches in your leg hole on this side as you did on the first side. So I hope that makes sense, but let me try to show you what I mean. There we go. Okay, so I'm on my corner stitch. Actually, I have, let me make sure. Yeah, I have one more stitch before I hit my corner stitch. So I'm just going to briefly check back and see what I did here. So it looks like I went on ahead in this corner stitch and made a stitch. So whatever you did over here, just try to make sure you do over there. And so then you turn it on its side, because we have to go down this side. Sorry, it's a little hard to turn for the camera, but yeah, so I have a stitch here, I have a stitch here, I have a stitch here, I have a stitch here. So you just want to make sure that on this little landing strip that you have kind of like the same areas. So these two, this stitch and this stitch match. So this stitch, one should be here, and just try to make sure that you have the same amount and kind of have them in the same places. If you have them in the same place, you will have the same amount. So just try to find the corresponding stitch so you kind of know where you're going to place your next stitch. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, that is my last piece of advice for these shorts. Other than that, the leg hole is exactly the same. So you just want to make sure that you get the same amount of stitches, the same amount of rows. Just try to do it the exact same way. And yeah, from there I'll show you a picture of what it looks like when it's finished. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys on my next video.